us off.
All right. Man, it was good to be back in the field. We obviously had a little longer break than a lot of other teams not going to a bowl game. So, being done when we were, a lot longer time between practices and being on the field. So I thought our energy was really good today for practice one. I thought the guys were excited to be out there. I thought the guys worked hard. Clearly, our practice habits are probably the biggest area for improvement after practice one. It wasn't that the energy wasn't good, it was great, but some of the habits, some of the pad levels, some of the finish, some of the routine fundamental technique things that we need to improve upon, I think we'll get better at. But all in all, for day one, year two in the systems and all three phases, offense, defense, and special teams, I thought the guys were really wired into what we were doing and why we were doing what we're doing. Obviously, the flow of practice, year two, much better. So all in all, it was a good day. But as I told the players, anybody can do it once. How we respond to Thursday to make the necessary adjustments in just our habits will be critical. The energy needs to remain at the level that it's at or improve. And then obviously the installation will continue to grow.
Dude, I would think that the first day of practice makes it real for the quarterbacks. It's like, hey, now the competition really begins. What are you seeing from them? And maybe more importantly, what do you want to see out of the next 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think in spring practice, one is I'd like them to have a real understanding of what we're trying to do, right? What is the emphasis on every play, whether it's a play action pass, a drop back pass, quick game, an RPO, a run pass option with an advantage throw, a run check, of just managing those things first, because that's telling me that they have an understanding of what we're trying to do each day. I think secondly is understanding of the defense. What are the fronts, what are the coverages, what are the pressures, and making the necessary reads there. And to do that, their eyes need to be in the right spot. We're constantly looking at where are their eyes, are they where they're supposed to be in a timely manner. And then thirdly, obviously the ability to make the play. Whether it's make the throw, avoid the rush, make the throw, keeping your eyes up in the pocket, things of that nature. It's always a little bit difficult early on when we're not in pads, because clearly the line of scrimmage is never as clean when you're not in pads. The defensive line naturally has the advantage there, so it puts a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks that way to have to maneuver the pocket to make those throws. From first look live, it felt pretty good. There's plenty of things to clean up, but we got to look at the tape and then really dig into are there a common theme in any areas where mistakes are occurring so that we can clean that up and continue to improve come Thursday.
Sark, have you been able to tell from the board or the quarterback room how much yours is digesting the offense? Or
I think he's doing fine. That was his first practice with us. It wasn't it was not perfect, but clearly he had a decent understanding of what we were trying to do. Naturally he got 4 months, 5 months under his belt in a really good system at Ohio State. And so a lot of the same concepts are very similar. Clearly the verbiage is different, right? And then you throw signals on top of that. So your mind can start racing. We just tried to keep him as calm as we could to allow him to be the best player that he can be. And so that's always going to be the evaluation of him, but then also the evaluation of us of how much we're putting on him to put him in the best position to be successful.
You spoke in the winter about new players. How are the new players like Jaleel, I guess Quinn as well, any of the other transfers, and even the freshmen like BJ and Jalen?
Yeah, that's a lot of guys. We have 14 new players out there today. So it's a lot of guys to try to assess them all just from looking at it live. I don't get to hit the rewind button out there on the field, but Jaleel was really natural and comfortable for him. Obviously, systematically, it was a good fit for him. I thought Isaiah looked comfortable at wideout. It was good to get Blue out there playing football again. He hasn't played football in over a year, so I thought that was good for him. It's hard to tell with like Cole Hudson at the line of scrimmage or a Jere Bledsoe and Aaron Bryant. Those guys are tough to tell. You got to look at the tape on that. Thought Terrence Brooks had a good day. Ryan Watts had a good day. Larry and BJ, I think in the back end, again, looking at the tape, I don't know at all exactly, were they seeing the right keys and were their eyes in the right spots? We'll have to assess that. So, and I thought Gilbo looked good. I thought he settled down. I think he was pretty excited early on. So, all in all, for those guys, first practice, new routine, new practice structure. We try to get a lot done in 2 hours, and so it's a lot of moving parts there that they'll only get more and more comfortable with as we move forward.
Coach, what do you want to see out of your defensive line in the spring, and what kind of improvements are you hoping for?
Yeah, we obviously have a deep group with a lot of the guys returning, with some of the new faces. Obviously, Justice is there now. I mean, a lot of new faces up front. I think one of the keys is finding that right rhythm from a rotational standpoint for us as a staff as we move forward. And two, the goal is, I think we've got really talented players there. And I think, if we can get to a point where they play a really dominant brand of football, which I think we're capable of doing, and that part of that is scheme, part of that is technique, part of that is them, not trying to save themselves, but really cutting it loose, knowing that we have the depth at that position. Because that's, to me, and you guys know me well enough on this, you win football games up front. And I think we have a chance to be good up front. But again, day one, no pads, we've got a lot of work to do.
Steve, kind of going off that, what's a guy like, say, Alfred Collins need to do to kind of become a more consistent and impactful player for every down to down?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about consistency, right? It's about, really, trusting your fundamentals, your techniques, playing with really good pad level, playing with great effort, because it's not about the talent. And what we're trying to minimize up front is, being sometime players, where you make one really great play and have two average plays. And I think we have the capability to be dominant, play in and play out. And you got to empty the tank to do that. But it's okay to empty the tank knowing we're going to have a pretty good rotation at that position. So for Alfred, it's trusting the fundamentals, the techniques, and playing with a level of consistency to his capability and to his standard.
At the end of last year, we talked about how Roshan was really kind of the guy everybody went to in the locker room, but Bijan wanted to become more vocal.
Yeah.
How has that process come along for him?
I think it's been good for him. We did some different things in winter conditioning to try to empower more leaders on the team, Bijan being one of those guys. And I think pretty much all of those guys embrace that role. The best teams I've ever been a part of, yes, as coaches, we're trying to lead, but player-led teams ultimately become, those are the best teams I've ever been part of when they hold each other accountable in the locker room. And to do that, you have to empower people to do it. And like I said, we tried to empower those guys in winter conditioning. Bijan was one of those guys, and I think he got more comfortable in that role. And obviously, having a guy like Roshan to kind of model what that looks like, especially in his own room, I think is really beneficial for him.
The comfort in moving Keaton from corner to safety, is that in part because of a guy like Watts, who you've seen on film, he's already played at a P5 level?
Yeah, I think that Ryan has been helpful in that. I think the addition of Terrence Brooks, Jalen Gilbo, I thought we brought in some really good players at that position. I think also defensively we want to be faster, right? And Keaton can really run. He is a physical player. He played really well for us last year on special teams. And so just trying to find him a spot to where he can be the player that he's capable of being, and also allow us to get more speed on the field defensively to eliminate space, right? We're trying to suffocate offenses. Well, to do it, you got to be able to close the distance on people in the run game and in the pass game.
What's your message to your new receivers coach, to that group? And everybody knows about Xavier, but just what are you wanting out of receivers, and who do you want to step up?
Well, I think ultimately, we're a lot harder to defend when the more weapons we have on the field, the more people that are dangerous that defenses have to be concerned with. And so, we don't want just one guy that we throw the ball to and one guy that we hand the ball to. The more weapons we have, hopefully the more difficult we're to defend. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there. It was great having Jay Witt back healthy. It's cool to see him. I touched on Isaiah. I thought Marcus had a pretty good day coming back. So I think as we build that depth, Brennan is a tremendous technician. This guy's one of the best, coaches individually as far as teaching technique, line of scrimmage, route running, ball catching ability. And I think the guys are buying into that. I think he really relates well to the players, and they respond. He coaches them hard, but they respond to him. And ultimately, they see an understanding of, hey, the better we're only going to be as good as the more weapons we can put on the field that are dangerous to defenses. And I think they're working towards that. We're not perfect. We're not a finished product by any means, but today was a good start, but we definitely have plenty to clean up.
Looking back, Steve, on where there were priorities, you've looked at everything, made your list. What, defensively, from a communication standpoint, coaches to players, players to players, is there anything you found that is a priority for you to, clean up or tighten up or?
Well, I think you kind of hit it. It's when everybody's in unison in any phase of the game, the better off you're going to be. And sometimes that's you need more scheme. Sometimes that's you need less scheme. Sometimes it's putting different players in different positions. Sometimes it's multiple fronts. Sometimes it's simple fronts. But at the end of the day, whatever it is, you got to have a level of belief in what you're doing. And I feel so much better today than I probably did at any point last year of just a real understanding of what we were trying to do today, and the guys going out and executing it. And when mistakes were made, a real kind of consistent voice of what the mistake was and how to fix it, rather than multiple things being said. And to me, that's a credit to our defensive staff of really working well together, and then the players responding to that. But we have to continue to build on that, right? And that's ultimately what I want to see, is that when we play as one, we coach as one, that's when you have real belief. You can't play with hope. You have to play with belief, but you earn belief through putting in the work. And I think we've put in a lot of work up until this point, but still plenty of work to go.
Coach, what's the distribution plan as far as Quinn and Hudson is concerned, and what kind of mental reps do you want Malik to take before he's able to get out on the field?
Yeah, we've been rotating those guys pretty fairly today, and we probably will here throughout spring. Like I said, I think that we owe both of those guys an opportunity, Hud, to see kind of as he continues to grow into year 3 and year 2 in our system in his development. Quinn, he's trying to digest a lot from our scheme, our terminology, in understanding how we go about our business. So a lot of rotation with those guys. Malik's a great worker. He's got an unbelievable work ethic. He's very attentive in meetings. He's attentive at practice. The mental reps are critical, but there's nothing like actually doing it. So we're obviously looking forward to getting him back on the field. He's a talented guy, but I like his desire to want to be good. Now, ultimately, we got to get him on the field and get him going.
What would you say Ewer's approach has been getting acclimated to the playbook, getting acclimated to the guys as he kind of finds his way here?
I think he's been great. I think a lot of times when guys transfer, you see it go two ways. You see some guys come in and really immerse themselves into it. You see other guys kind of wait back and kind of get a feel for how it's happening. I think Quinn's done a nice job of just immersing himself into it and not being so caught up in, am I the starter, am I not, but focusing on what he needs to focus on to be the best player that he can be. And I think he's done that. He's put in a lot of work. I've seen a lot of guys have a lot worse first practice, in a brand new offense and trying to figure it all out. So clearly you can see the work that he's put in, but there's a bunch for us to work on. It's the most important position in sports for a reason, because there's so many variables that go into it, and it's not all physical. Some of it's mental, some of it's emotional. But he is definitely a driven guy. But I think inevitably the growth from one day to the next is what's going to be critical. And there's going to be days that are going to be harder than others. There's going to be days when more mistakes occur, and that's okay. I'm not expecting him to be perfect. How he responds to those things is going to be what's going to be critical for us.
Steve, I'm curious, all the attention he got as a recruit because of how talented he was and being the number one guy and classifying and all that stuff. You talk about the mental, emotional part. He got a lot of attention when he transferred here. I would imagine that breeds some kind of natural pressure, but how have you seen him handle that, and how do you guys want to approach that with him?
Yeah, Quinn, he's a pretty cool customer, you know. I don't think he's a very anxious guy. He's not a too cool for school kind of guy. I just think that I think he loves football. I think he loves being on a team and being on this team and being around guys that he's comfortable with. I think that's one thing that he's really shared with me being back is he feels very comfortable with the guys on our team, having played against them, played with a couple of these guys, and it just feels comfortable to him, and it feels comfortable to me when I watch him. I don't feel like this is a guy pressing to try to become the man here, or a guy who is too cool for school, whether he's running with the twos or the ones. He's just putting in work, you know, and I think he's enjoying playing football, which is something that, you know, he didn't really get to play so much a year ago. You know, the guy missed his whole senior year, so I think he's just enjoying being back out there and learning, and he's coachable, and, you know, he's eager to, you know, want to take the advice, and then he tries to apply it the next time it comes up.
With offensive line, I know you probably don't have the numbers now that you're going to have in the fall. How do you mitigate or manage having, I guess, fewer numbers than you would prefer at offensive line for these practices?
Well, we had to adjust some. You know, generally in spring practice, when we do a lot of our team stuff, we like to two-spot so that everybody's getting reps. We're just not able to do that right now with the number at the line position. We have 6 guys that are going to show up in the summer. You know, 6 more bodies. So that affects us some in just the style of practice that we want to have, but that's okay. We got really quality work today, but we definitely had to adjust based off the numbers there.
Andre Carrick, what do you want to see him, you know, what does he need to do to take the next step?
Consistency. You know, like a lot of the guys, you know, there's a level of consistency needed to play at a high level. It is not, you know, you guys have heard me say it. It's not a sometime thing. You know, you can't be, you know, one play use great technique, good pad level, communicate really well, and the next play not. Especially on the offensive line, because when they make a mistake, generally it's pretty glaring, right? It's like playing cornerback. When a corner, you know, does the wrong thing, it's a touchdown. When an offensive lineman does the wrong thing, generally it's a tackle for loss or a sack. And so you really have to fight to be as consistent as you can be on the line of scrimmage, and Andre's no different. I think for him to go to the next level in his game, it's consistency day in and day out, play in and play out.
Yes, Steve, you have obviously a lot of new guys with the spotlight on them, but a lot of returners from last year's team. When you're looking at them, maybe not even physically, but just like maybe mentally and emotionally, do you want to see them with a chip on their shoulder? Do you want to see them maybe a little pissed off, or do you kind of want to see them blank slate the whole thing?
No, I'd like us to play with more edge. You know, I talked about that last year. That, you know, I think that you earn the right to play with edge when you're really understanding what you're trying to do. You're understanding the scheme, and you can go cut it loose. And I thought at times last year, especially when maybe things got a little hairy in the fourth quarter, we got a little hesitant and we didn't play with enough edge. And, you know, I'd like us to play with more edge. I'd like us to be a bit of an angry football team. But you earn that through your preparation to get to that point. And like I said, today, day one install, not a lot of volume. I thought our edge and our intent with what we were doing things was good.
What do you feel
Time
like-
for 2 last ones?
Go ahead.
Okay. Coach, where do you feel like the level of buy-in is, like, right now, maybe even compared to, you know, where it could have been last year? At some point?
I said this to you guys last year. I think it's good, but you got to ask the players that question. I feel great about it, but they'll tell you that.
Injury update?
Nothing today. We're good.
O'Meary, you expect him back any time?
Not for spring ball. No, I mean he's on kind of his rehab program. Jaden Alexis is on his rehab program. Luke Brockmeyer's on his program, so nothing new today.
Juan Davis, okay?
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a strain. We're just precautionary. Like, we go through spring ball maybe different than others. We do it over a 5-week span, so we do 3 practices a week for 5 weeks. And a couple of the guys that have got a little bit of a strain, Jameer Johnson, I don't want to press them in too quickly and then not have them for the duration. So I'd rather, if we can get them 100%, whether it's by Saturday or into next week, they've still got 4 weeks in spring ball to really improve. So that's kind of our mindset there. And other things may pop up that we do the same with some other guys.